nanny slept with the millionaire's son. And what happened next will shock you. Sarah Martinez never imagined that answering a simple job posting would change her life forever. At 25, she was drowning in student debt, working 3 part-time jobs just to keep her tiny studio apartment. When she saw the advertisement for a live-in nanny position at the prestigious Blackwood estate, paying more in a month than she made in 6, she knew it was too good to be true. But desperation has a way of making even the impossible seem reasonable. If you're loving this story so far, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe to Billionaire in Love for more incredible stories of love conquering all odds. Now let's see what happens next. The Blackwood mansion stood like a fortress against the Seattle skyline, its towering gates and manicured gardens screaming old money and untouchable privilege. Sarah's beat-up Honda Civic looked comically out of place as she pulled up to the servants' entrance, her hands trembling as she clutched her worn resume. She was here to care for 8-year-old Emma Blackwood, whose mother had died in a car accident 2 years prior, leaving the little girl in the care of her grieving billionaire father, Richard Blackwood. What Sarah hadn't expected was meeting Daniel Blackwood on her very first day. At 28, Daniel was everything she should have stayed away from: tall, devastatingly handsome, with eyes that held both intelligence and a dangerous charm. He was also her employer's son, making him completely off limits in every way that mattered. But when their eyes met across the grand foyer as he descended the marble staircase, something electric passed between them that neither could ignore. Daniel had returned home after completing his MBA at Harvard, reluctantly agreeing to join the family business. He was supposed to be focusing on the upcoming merger that would expand Blackwood Industries internationally, but instead, he found himself distracted by the young woman who had brought laughter back into their somber household. Emma, who had barely spoken since her mother's death, was suddenly chattering excitedly about her new nanny, who played guitar and told the most amazing bedtime stories. For weeks, Sarah and Daniel danced around their attraction, stealing glances across the dinner table when she joined the family for meals, their fingers brushing when he helped her with Emma's homework. Conversations that stretched late into the night when Emma was asleep. Sarah knew she was playing with fire, but Daniel's genuine kindness and the way he looked at her like she was the most fascinating person in the world made her feel alive for the first time in years. The night everything changed started innocently enough. A thunderstorm had knocked out the power and Emma was frightened. Sarah had moved her into the main living room where the fireplace provided both warmth and comfort. Daniel found them there, Sarah's gentle voice weaving a story about brave princesses and magical storms, while Emma curled against her side, finally at peace. In that moment, watching Sarah comfort his little sister with such natural grace and love, Daniel realized he had fallen completely and hopelessly in love. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep and been carried to her room, Daniel and Sarah found themselves alone by the dying fire. The conversation flowed from Emma's progress to their own dreams and fears, and somewhere between discussing Daniel's reluctance to join the corporate world and Sarah's abandoned dreams of becoming a music teacher, the distance between them disappeared. When Daniel reached out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, when Sarah didn't pull away, when their lips finally met in a kiss that felt like coming home, they both knew there was no turning back. Their secret relationship blossomed over the following months. Stolen moments that felt like their own private world. Daniel would wait until the household was asleep to slip into Sarah's room in the staff quarters, where they would talk for hours, sharing dreams and fears, making love with a tenderness that surprised them both. Sarah discovered that beneath Daniel's privileged exterior was a man who questioned everything about the life that had been mapped out for him, who donated anonymously to children's charities, who spent his free time volunteering at homeless shelters. Daniel found in Sarah a strength and authenticity he had never encountered in his world of society, parties and business dinners. But their fairy tale couldn't last forever. Richard Blackwood was a man who noticed everything, and his son's sudden interest in staying home, combined with the remarkable change in both Emma and Daniel's demeanor, didn't escape his attention. When he hired a private investigator and discovered the truth about his son's relationship with the help, his reaction was swift and devastating. The confrontation happened on a cold February morning. Sarah was helping Emma with her breakfast when Richard stormed into the kitchen. Daniel close behind, his face pale with anger and desperation. "Pack your things," Richard told Sarah, his voice cutting through the warm domestic scene like a blade. "You're fired, effective immediately." Emma's confused tears and Daniel's furious protests filled the air, but Richard's decision was final. Security was called to escort Sarah from the property, and she was forbidden from ever contacting anyone in the household again. Daniel fought his father with everything he had, threatening to leave the family business to cut all ties, but Richard had been prepared for this. He revealed that Sarah's background check had shown her family's history of financial struggles, her father's bankruptcy, her brother's past legal troubles. "She's a gold digger," he declared coldly. "She saw an opportunity and took it. You're worth $300 million, Daniel. Do you really think she would have looked at you twice if you were a struggling teacher or artist?" The words hit their target, awakening every insecurity Daniel had ever harbored about whether people loved him for himself or his bank account. When he tried to call Sarah when he drove to her old apartment, he discovered she had vanished completely. Unbeknownst to him, Richard had offered Sarah a substantial sum of money to disappear and never contact Daniel again. But Sarah had refused the money, taking only enough to cover her moving expenses. She couldn't bear the thought of Daniel, believing his father's cruel assessment of her motives, but she also knew that staying would only bring more pain to everyone involved, especially Emma. 5 years passed. Daniel threw himself into the family business with a vengeance, becoming the ruthless corporate leader his father had always wanted him to be. But success felt hollow, and every relationship he attempted felt like a pale imitation of what he had shared with Sarah. He hired investigators to find her, but Sarah had effectively erased her digital footprint, starting over in a small town in Oregon, where she had finally achieved her dream of becoming a music teacher. Sarah's new life was quiet but fulfilling. She taught elementary school music, directed the church choir, and had even started a small music therapy program for children with special needs. But despite the satisfaction she found in her work, she never forgot the man who had shown her that love could be gentle and passionate at the same time, or the little girl who had called her the best nanny in the whole world. She never married, never even seriously dated, measuring every man against the memory of Daniel and finding them all wanting. The reunion came in the most unexpected way. Emma, now 13 and as headstrong as her brother, had run away from her elite boarding school. Using skills learned from too many detective novels, she had tracked down her beloved former nanny to the small Oregon town where Sarah now lived. When Daniel received the frantic call from school officials, when he discovered Emma's meticulous research and her plan to find Sarah, his heart nearly stopped. All the walls he had built around his feelings came crashing down as he realized that Emma wasn't the only one who had never stopped missing Sarah. He found them at a small coffee shop on Main Street, Emma animatedly telling Sarah about school, her friends, her music lessons, while Sarah listened with the same patient attention she had always given. Daniel stood in the doorway drinking in the sight of the woman who had haunted his dreams for 5 years, noting how she had grown even more beautiful, more confident, but still had the same gentle strength that had captured his heart. The conversation that followed was awkward, painful, and necessary. Emma, with the devastating honesty of a 13-year-old, demanded to know why the two adults she loved most had been so stupid as to let grandfather's mean words keep them apart. She revealed that she had overheard the original confrontation, that she knew her grandfather had lied about Sarah being a gold digger, and that she was tired of living in a house where everyone pretended to be happy but no one actually was. Through Emma's innocent revelation and their own honest conversation, Daniel and Sarah began to piece together the truth of what had happened 5 years ago. Sarah learned that Daniel had tried desperately to find her, that he had never believed his father's accusations. Once his initial hurt had faded, Daniel discovered that Sarah had refused his father's money, that she had left to protect him and Emma from further family drama, not because she was after his wealth. But 5 years was a long time and they were different people now. Sarah had built a life she loved, complete with students who depended on her, and a community where she belonged. Daniel had responsibilities to the family business and to Emma, who was finally thriving in her exclusive school. They agreed to take things slowly, to see if the connection they had once shared could survive the reality of their different worlds. The courtship that followed was nothing like their first secret romance. This time Daniel courted Sarah openly, flying to Oregon on weekends, bringing Emma for school holidays, slowly integrating Sarah into their lives in a way that felt natural and honest. Sarah visited Seattle, staying in a hotel and joining Daniel for family dinners where she faced Richard's cold disapproval with quiet dignity. She watched Daniel navigate his business responsibilities with a maturity and skill that made her proud. While he admired how she had built something meaningful from nothing, how she touched the lives of her students and community, Richard Blackwood's opposition never fully disappeared, but it evolved from active hostility to grudging acceptance as he watched his son and granddaughter flourish in ways they hadn't since before his daughter-in-law's death. When Sarah's music program received national recognition for its work with special needs children, when Daniel's leadership helped Blackwood Industries achieve record profits while maintaining ethical standards, Richard began to understand that his son had chosen well after all. The proposal came during Emma's 8th grade graduation concert, where Sarah was conducting a performance that included a song Emma had written about second chances in the family you choose. As the last notes faded and the audience erupted in applause, Daniel walked onto the stage, dropped to one knee, and asked Sarah to officially become part of their family. Emma's squeal of delight could be heard throughout the auditorium, and when Sarah said yes through her tears, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Their wedding was a blend of their two worlds. A small ceremony in Sarah's Oregon town followed by a reception at the Blackwood estate, where the staff who had known and loved Sarah during her Nanny days welcomed her back with genuine joy. Richard walked her down the aisle, finally admitting that he had been wrong to judge her, that he could see how much she truly loved his son. But the real shock came during the wedding reception, when Daniel announced his decision to step back from day-to-day operations at Blackwood Industries to start a foundation focused on education and music programs for underprivileged children. Sarah would serve as the program director, finally able to expand her work to help children nationwide. Emma, beaming with pride, announced that she planned to major in social work so she could join the family foundation when she graduated college. As Sarah and Daniel danced to their first song as husband and wife, surrounded by the family and friends who had supported their journey back to each other, they reflected on how far they had come, from a forbidden love affair between a nanny and her employer's son to a partnership built on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine affection. Their story proved that real love could overcome any obstacle, survive any separation, and grow stronger through adversity. The foundation they created together, the children they helped, and the family they built became their greatest legacy. Emma grew up to become a passionate advocate for children's rights, following in her stepmother's footsteps but blazing her own trail. Richard, in his final years, often remarked that his biggest mistake had been trying to keep Sarah away from his family, and his greatest pride was watching the three people he loved most change the world together. Their story became a testament to the power of second chances, the importance of fighting for love worth having, and the truth that real wealth isn't measured in bank accounts but in the depth of our connections with others. Sarah had thought she was just answering a job posting, but she had found her destiny. Daniel had thought he was stuck in a life he didn't want, but he had discovered his purpose. And Emma had gained not just a stepmother, but a role model who showed her that love, patience, and dedication could overcome any challenge. Years later, when young couples would ask them for advice about navigating class differences or family opposition to their relationships, Sarah and Daniel would tell them that love alone isn't enough. You need courage, commitment, and the willingness to fight for what matters most. But when you find someone who loves you for who you truly are, someone who makes you want to be better while accepting you exactly as you are, that's worth fighting for with everything you've got. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that love really can conquer all, please show your support by liking this video, sharing it with someone who needs hope, and subscribing to Trillionaire in Love for more incredible stories about love that defies all odds. Comment below and tell us about your own experience with love that seemed impossible, but somehow found a way. Your story might inspire our next video. The nanny who slept with the millionaire's son didn't just find her happily ever after. She created a legacy of love that changed countless lives. and proved that sometimes the most shocking thing of all is how beautiful life can become when you're brave enough to fight for the love you deserve.